Hello, everybody. This is David Canepa here again from the mixed reality team in Microsoft. And today we're going to be talking about security. This is often a very debated topic. We get a lot of questions about it. So instead of me just going through it as some of the previous videos, I decided to invite one of our security specialists in the team, which is Kieran. Hello, how are you?
Oh, good, brilliant, lovely to be here today.
Thank you. Now, security, we get so many questions about it and about if the HoloLens is secure and why, like companies, especially it being a corporate device, they're worried that if the HoloLens can be a weak point in their infrastructure in which people can hack through it and which their security can be compromised. So we have a couple of questions for you, and hopefully you can take us through the steps. And one that I've been receiving a lot is, if we have a cloud device, would it be as secure as an on-prem device?
Yeah, and this is a great question about the HoloLens because it is a completely different type of device to what lots of companies have had to deal with in their infrastructure before. Companies are comfortable dealing with, say, a Windows laptop or a Mac laptop. They're getting comfortable these days with dealing with things like mobile phones, Androids and iOSs, but the HoloLens is kind of a hybrid of both of these worlds. It is a full Windows 10 operating system. So I default to wanting to treat it like a laptop. And wanting to enroll it into my domain and manage it the same way I would my corporate laptops. But it's a cloud-first device built for a mobile modern workforce. So actually, it's more akin to my mobile phone in lots of ways. And the operating system, whilst Windows 10 has been built in a completely different style, more akin to a mobile phone operating system, meaning that lots of the classical security controls just don't make sense. And a
So
great
does that mean that I would need an antivirus for it, or I wouldn't?
Yeah, and it's a great example because if you're looking at a normal Windows 10 laptop, you wouldn't dream about not having an antivirus component on there. But the HoloLens isn't a normal Windows 10 device. It's more like that mobile phone world. And as such, there's no requirement, there's no need for an antivirus. This often causes a few sort of, oh, hang on, how does that work? So let me break it down a little bit further.
Please
The
do. Mhm.
Windows operating system on a HoloLens is actually separated using a state separation in the same way you would get on a mobile phone. So this is the operating system itself has components that are not writable. The core operating system is in what we call the unalterable state. We have operating system data that is alterable, that needs to be editable. And then we have applications that sit in their own sandbox in the same way that applications on a mobile phone are sandboxed off. And these are the universal Windows applications, which are downloaded from the Microsoft Store and that we can run on the HoloLens. You can't run arbitrary code on the HoloLens. You can't run .exes or binary files or just DLL files. The operating system doesn't allow the use of those types of files. The only applications, the only code that can be run is code that's signed by either a trusted certificate on the HoloLens or by the Windows Store. In the same way that when you think about the iOS as a mobile platform, you can only run apps from the App Store. And as such, you don't need the antivirus because there's no way to introduce that arbitrary code that would come from a virus. Now, that's not to say that there aren't other classical security controls that are applicable. Full disk encryption, as an example of one. And the HoloLens has storage. It has a disk drive that should be encrypted. And as such, the BitLocker component that we have in Windows 10 is present in the operating system itself. Something like, I don't know, application control, where maybe you want to control which applications can run on the device. Again, completely applicable. You might only want certain applications to run on the HoloLens device. And there's a number of ways that we can control what that is. But antivirus as a concept just doesn't make sense in a mobile, in a cloud world, and the HoloLens device falls more on that side.
Oh, that makes sense, and it's good to know that it can be as safe as an on-prem device, giving that you manage it correctly and that you deploy the correct configurations on it, which is great. So if we have a cloud-based device, that would mean that we would need cloud-based identities to run it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And this is completely correct, because again, if we think about that traditional laptop, you're probably connecting it to an on-premise domain, a Microsoft domain for a Windows laptop. But again, that concept doesn't exist when we think of a cloud-first device. Instead, we look to use a cloud-based domain, so Azure Active Directory rather than on-premise Active Directory. And this always raises questions around, okay, so how do I do my identity? How do I have that multiple user experience? And there are many pieces of the toolset that, once again, are lifted directly from your Windows laptop. So if you're using Windows Hello for Business for strong, secure, potentially biometric identification of your users before they log on, this is all applicable on the HoloLens. The difference being, on the HoloLens 2, we don't leverage a front-facing camera to look at my face. Instead, the camera is actually built much, much closer and looks at my iris and does an iris scan to give me a biometric authentication and allow me to have that seamless logon. And this is using my cloud-based identity rather than my on-premise identity. Same concepts, just moved into the cloud rather than on-premise. And one of the other scenarios that I hear a lot of people ask around identity is, HoloLens devices are very often a shared kiosk style device.
Yep.
And when I've got lots of different users and lots of HoloLenses, and any user could pick up any HoloLens and put it on their head, how do I deal with enrolling users onto all those devices? How do I deal with the fact that they have to register their iris with 100 different devices and could be 100 different users pick up any device? And with HoloLens 2, we also inherit from the Windows 10 laptop world the use of FIDO security keys. So FIDO 2 compliant security keys are small USB keys where you can enroll your user identity and the secure material needed to authenticate that user onto the security key, and then just plug that key into the USB port of the HoloLens, allowing authentication from the key and a second factor like a PIN, as well as the physical key, to give you two-factor authentication to any device that they may pick up from the trolley without needing to pre-enroll the users on all those devices. Just once, pre-enroll the user to their security key. So even in a cloud-first world, we still have capability for those scenarios of multi-user, multi-device, or single-user personal device with seamless biometric authentication.
Well, that can be very useful as well when you're talking about large corporations when they're scaling this the program, their mixed reality program, for them to be able to configure it in these different ways depending on their scenarios. Well, I mean that's great. So, okay, so we've gone through these bits, but then sometimes we still, when we're halfway through the conversations with people, we still see that they're worried that if the HoloLens is going to represent that they're going to have to do a completely different setup, and if it won't integrate to their current infrastructure. For example, a certificate-based Wi-Fi. So can the HoloLens 2 integrate to their existing infrastructure and policies that they already have, or will they have to set up something completely different?
Yeah, and exactly that. If companies have good investment in strong security, in modern security using certificate-based Wi-Fi or certificate-based VPN profiles, the HoloLens benefits from being a Windows 10 device. It has all those capabilities built in out the box. We can manage certificates on the HoloLens. We can connect to Wi-Fi profiles that are protected via a pre-shared key or a certificate. We can have VPN connections that are managed on the device and can be authenticated using certificates as well. The one thing that's different is how we actually deliver that key material and how we deliver those settings to the HoloLens. Because traditionally, we might use something like a config manager on-premise or on-premise Active Directory to be the mechanism to deliver, say, the settings or to get the certificates from our PKI onto the device. And this is the bit that needs to change, because that's an on-premise approach, whereas with a cloud-first approach, we would leverage a mobile device management authority, more akin to our mobile phone world, to do that same configuration. So something like Microsoft Intune can connect to a PKI, can broker the certificate request from the device back to the infrastructure and pass the certificate back to the device, along with, say, a Wi-Fi profile telling the device which Wi-Fi to connect to and which certificate to use. So we can still leverage all of those existing investments in strong security infrastructure and good security practice that a company have for their on-premise devices. We just use a more mobile approach towards how we manage the device and how we get those settings there.
Okay, so pretty much what a company would have to do first is manage to just log on for the first time, so the device gets registered into Intune and through Azure Active Directory, so it's secure and it says, hey, I'm part of this organization, I'm part of the company, can you please give me all the information that I need, all the configurations, and then you download the corresponding certificates, the corresponding policies, and then with that we're able to access all the resources that the current company has. Is that, do you think, an accurate kind of like summary? What do you think?
Exactly, and we can even go one step further, and using tools like Autopilot, we can have the same type of approach you have for a laptop device, where out of the box you can a user can pick up the HoloLens, pop it on their head, it'll ask them who they are, perhaps, so that it pulls their specific, or perhaps it doesn't even ask them who they are. The device out of the sealed box already knows it's attached to this organization, because we're in a cloud-first approach. When that device gets on the Wi-Fi, it can check in and say, I know I'm part of Contoso, give me my settings, give me my configurations, so that I set myself up ready for that user to go. So exactly that experience we want to enable. And it's the same as we have using Autopilot on laptops for full Windows 10 devices today.
Well, Kieran, thank you very much. You've definitely gone through some very key concepts that we get, and I'm glad that you mentioned Autopilot, because we did some recordings on taking people through step by step on how to do Autopilot. In a similar fashion, how we did Autopilot, after this video, we will be creating some videos on how to do step-by-step process of all of the different steps that Kieran just mentioned. So how to set up a Wi-Fi profile, how to set up those certificates, how to set up the VPN, and all these different security configurations, so you know how to do it, how to implement it, how all of this works, and then you can get up and going with your HoloLens and enjoy the benefits of mixed reality. Any closing bits or things that you would like to say, Kieran?
The only thing I'd say is if people still have questions or want to know more about how any of the security components work, or have specific questions like what trusted platform module version do we have in the HoloLens device, go look at our documentation. There is a great section on our documentation that's about 10 different articles specifically dedicated to security on the HoloLens 1 and the HoloLens 2. So go have a look at it. It walks through in a lot more detail than I have today, how some of those different components work, and what the options are, and where we've got maybe similarities or differences from a traditional laptop device.
And I'll make sure to put a link to that documentation in the description of the video, and feel free to get in touch. And if you have any questions, we're here to help, we're here to support, and we're keen to see what you guys can make with mixed reality. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye-bye.